Elvis really made me mad a couple of times, but mostly he made me laugh. But there was always the music. And when I think of him, and I think of him every day, the thing I remember most about him was his humanity. I'm following you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming here, and we got in with the good weather, so now when the bad weather, we'll have to ask for it to go down while we go to lunch, and then it can, when you're home, it can start back raining again, right? That's what we've been asking for. Anyway, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoy it. I'm looking forward to sharing a lot of stories of my life with Elvis. I hope to give you an insight into him beyond what you already have from the books and the movies and documentaries you've seen. A lot of that was not done by some of us that were really personally close to him. And so I want to tell you that. First thing I want to do is tell you about when I met him. I met him in 1958, just before he was getting ready to go to Germany. And I was home from the Air Force. I'd gotten out and was home, and my cousin Red took me out to, and my three sisters and my brother-in-law out to the skating rink for Elvis's private roller skating party that he was having. He had a lot of them, which I was to find out, much to my chagrin. But anyway, I'd like to first tell you, to kind of give you a theme of what he was beyond what you saw. That was when I first met him. I first saw him when I was in high school. He came to the campus and he was promoting his record, new one, That's All Right Mama, which was recorded on my birthday in 1954, July the 5th. And so that fall, I'm in school, go out at lunchtime, and there he is on the campus, and he's singing these songs that he had. And I thought at the time, he moved around a lot, but he was good, you know. Even then, he was jumping around all over the place. Girls were giggling and laughing, and oh, yeah, isn't he handsome, this and that. So then the next time I saw him I was in the Air Force, and he did a concert show out in Tucson, Arizona, where I was stationed at the base out there. And I went and saw him there, and Dynamite, she was in 56. And then the next time I saw him, probably will stick out. In fact, I know it will stick out in my life forever. Red's father, my Uncle Tom, who was my favorite uncle, passed away. He actually passed away the same day that Elvis's mother passed away. She passed away early in the morning around 5:30 a.m. or so, and later that evening, going into that day and that evening, Red's father died. So it made their funerals a day apart. But it's kind of ironic because they were buried one day apart, but they were in the same funeral home, the services, and also the same exact stateroom. And I was sitting there with my dad in the family area, and Red's up there on the front row, and we hear this noise behind us, and we turn around and look, and there's a private entrance that comes in from the street. And here comes Elvis with a couple of guys with him, and he's just kind of stumbling along, and he's calling out to Red. Red, where are you, man? Red. You got to understand, he had just buried his mother the day before. And he came in, and Red stood up, and they embraced, and Elvis was crying very, very openly. They walked over to the casket, and he said, "Oh, Red, I know how much you love him. I know how much you miss him." And he said, "Mama was just there yesterday, so I know what you're going through." And They hugged, and then Elvis said, "You know what, Red? I'll be there for you, man. Come out to the house when you're ready. But I got to get out of here." A lot of people were crying watching it. That's the most emotion I ever saw of Elvis. And the rest of the years, I saw some other trying times for him, even when we went out to visit his mom's gravesite there in the early 60s. We would drive out there quite often and go up there, and he'd just talk to his mom while we kind of stood off to the back, whoever was with him. But that was his humanity. That's the Elvis that you won't see. You won't ever see because he's gone. But that's the Elvis that was there that no one else saw except us guys. And his humanity really, really was something that stuck out in so many ways, and that's one of them. That's when he showed how human he really was, you know. He was there for Red, even though he just lost his mom. So now, after that, he went back to the base, and he came back on leave before he went to Germany to spend 18 months over there. And Red invited myself and my 3 sisters and my brother-in-law to come out there to meet him to a private party he was having. He had a lot of them at the roller skating rink. We went out there. Red brings Elvis over. They skate up and everything. And I'm not a very good skater. I didn't spend much time skating when I was younger. You know, other things were more fun. But they come over and introduce, and I was very impressed at how nice Elvis was. I mean, this is a superstar. And he said, "Hey, Sonny, nice to meet you," and everything, and nice to meet you. And I'm thinking, whoa, you know. My brother-in-law's in the Air Force, and he's home on leave. And he's so we're standing there, and they said, "Look, we play a game here called War. And we'd like y'all to play with us, but we want you to see how we play it first, and then you'll know how we play it, and then you can join in after we take the first break." And we said, "Okay." Well, they went out there, and I'll tell you, war is a good word for it. It's chaotic. Bodies flying all over the place. It's a combination of hockey, rugby, football, everything. Wrestling, judo, karate. You just don't hit in the face. And I'm seeing bodies fly through the air, and I'm seeing them get body blocked and flipping over and hitting on that floor, and you know. Well, my brother-in-law walks away. He said, "I'm not going out there." And he went back up there and sat next to my sister. And so I had noticed a box, big cardboard box over to the side where people were getting out elbow pads and putting on their elbows and putting on their knees. And I'd already done that because I knew I was going to fall out there when I tried to skate. So Red and them, they take the break, and they come over. And first thing, Red, "Where's Bill?" My brother-in-law. I said, "He's back up with Barbara, my sister, up there sitting down." And Red hollered, and "Bill, come on." Bill said, "I can't get out there, man. I got a family to raise," you know. He was only 28 or 29. He was about 5 or 6 years older than us at all, but he acted like he was an old man. So Red looked at me and said, "What about you, Sonny?" I said, "Let's go, but I'm going to go over that box first." I went over that box, boy, and I put pads on from up here. I looked like a goalie in a hockey league without the mask. And I asked him, "You got any chest protectors or anything around here?" And I loaded up from the top of my knees down to my ankles, all the way to my hands up. And I said, "I'm ready." Well, I went out there. I, of course, new guy on the block. I'm on the other team. So I go down there and I get over next to the rail, because like I said, I don't skate good, and I need that rail if I start to fall to grab hold of. So I'm there and I look up. There's a girl on Elvis's team, and she's on the side of the rail that I am, up there on his side. And she was the only girl that he would let skate, because she was tough. She looked more like a Chicago linebacker, you know. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. Sure enough, they blow the whistle, and I start trying to get going. And the others just leave me. And then all of a sudden, here comes this freight train at me. Whoa! And I put my hands up just to try to absorb getting the blow I'm getting ready to get, and it knocked me spinning, and I went down. Man, you know, what a hit. So I get up, don't think anything about it, and I start looking for someone to do it again. All of a sudden, I just get going, and something grabs me by my shirt and jerks me backward, and my feet go out, and I hit that floor, and she goes skating by, you know. So I got up next time, I started looking for her. I'm looking around, because I think she was like a shark, circling, waiting for me. And I didn't know why at the time. I didn't know what it was. And so I didn't see her, so I got up again and I started moving on. And I see someone and I start going, and all of a sudden something hit me behind my knees and my legs went up and I hit the floor and she goes skating by again. I said, enough. I crawled over to the side, afraid to get up, afraid she'd get me before I got there. I crawled over and got against the rail and just leaned back against the rail that's around the rink. And they just kept, I'm watching bodies fly and I'm ducking as some of them go by. And then they blew the whistle, took a break. Here comes Red and Elvis. Red, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm resting. He said, resting? I said, yeah, all I've done is get up and down off that floor. That girl was just beating the hell out of me over there. Elvis is laughing. He said, Melinda, come here. So she skates over and he says, why are you after him? That's Red's cousin. And she liked Red because Red was as physical as she was, boom, busting heads. So she said, I don't care who he is. She said, if he's going to knock me down, I'm going to knock. I said, honey, I'm not trying to knock you down. I'm trying to get out of your way, And I said, as a matter of fact, if you'll leave me alone and I happen to end up in front of you, just give me a minute to turn and I'll just go the other way. So Elvis is dying laughing. So he said, Melinda, leave him alone. He's okay. So we went ahead and skated and everything. And end of the night there, I went up and I had a split cheek. Elvis even had a first aid guy that does the butterfly stitches in case you get a cut. So I had a cut. He put that. I had a cut in my head where skates almost knocked me out, hit me in the head and cut my head. My shoulder, I got knocked into the rail one time because I was hanging close to it and I bruised it up real bad. So I go up to Elvis after it's all over with and I thank him for having me and my sisters out there and tell him, that I really enjoyed meeting and everything. He said, yeah, a lot of fun, right? And I said, yeah, I had some fun, He said, well, I'll see you tomorrow night then. I said, Elvis, tomorrow night I probably won't even be able to walk, much less skate. He said, well, maybe not, but you'll be out here skating, won't you? I didn't know it, folks, but at that time, the seed was planted. Not only for a friendship that would endure and get bigger and everything and grow over the years, starting a year and a half when he got back from the Army, but also I'd be doing his bidding. I'd be doing what he needed done. When he asked me to go to work, he let me know that. So he went to Germany. And then he comes home. Oh, one thing too. Back then, I said GD a lot. I mean, like every other word, sentence, I'd say it. And Red told me, he said, man, Sonny, Elvis really likes you, but you really say GD and he doesn't like that word. I said, well, I'll stop saying it, and I did. Later on, Elvis said it quite a bit, but anyway, later on through the years when he got mad. But so he came back and I went out to see him, say hi to him, welcome him home, and the war started again. Back out to the skating rink, but we had breaks where we went and watched movies all night too, and I hung out with him. And I was still doing my day job, working from 8 to 5 over at this appliance store. I repaired washer, dryers, and at Ace Appliance. And so after about 2 or 3 weeks, and Elvis asked me if I'd ever heard of karate. Back when I walked in to see him, there he was, he was in the foyer, right there, doing karate with his friend that had studied with him in the Army. And he asked me if I'd ever heard of it. And I said, no, but I've seen those outfits because I'd seen judo. And they had on the gis. And he said, yeah, he said, this is it's called the gi. So anyway, getting back to it, so when I started hanging out with him, he went ahead and asked if I'd like to go to work for him. I said, no. I'm just kidding. Everyone just got quiet. I said, well, what would I do? And he said, well, whatever I need. Whatever I need you to do, drive, go get something, run errands or whatever. I said, okay, I'll have to give my notice, 2 weeks notice from my boss. He said, that's okay. He said, we're getting ready to go down to Florida where I'm doing a TV show with Frank Sinatra, which was that Timex special Welcome Back Elvis thing or whatever. And he said, then when we come back, we're going to go to Nashville, record a couple of songs, then we're going to head out and make a movie. I said, I'll be ready to go. So I was. He went on down, did the special, got $125,000 back in 1960 for singing 2.5 songs. Not bad, huh? Unheard of, but that's what Colonel could do. He knew how to make those deals. So we head out, go out on a train, actually, private train. We have a club car and a sleeper. And we're sitting in the club car there on the ride. It took about 2.5, 3 days to get out there. And we're visiting in there, and I always wore a flat top when I was younger. It was a very popular haircut back then. You either wore long with the DAs or you had a half and half, which was flat top on the back with the DAs on the side. Well, I just kept mine. I played baseball and football, so I just kept my hair short. And he was looking at me, he said, Sonny, that hair is not going to cut it out in Hollywood, man. I said, what do you mean? He said, you got to let that moss grow. He said, get that Tony Curtis look, you know, sweep it over and everything. I said, oh, you do? I said, okay. I didn't know. I was 21 years old. Other than being in the Air Force, I hadn't been anywhere big time, so I started doing it. And I've got a picture, as a matter of fact, taken on Wild in the Country where my hair is starting to, it's growing that way. So we got out there and we went over to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, same hotel where they shot Pretty Woman, if you remember that movie. And Lamar and Charlie and I are staying up in the penthouse, which the word, it's a big word, nice sounding word, but it's just a big room with 2 studio beds, and we had to bring in a fold-away for Charlie. And Elvis had a 2-room suite where Joe and his cousin Gene stayed in 1 bedroom, and Elvis had the back bedroom. So we're gonna go over and to the set, to Paramount, to start filming GI Blues. They'd already shot some second unit stuff in Germany while Elvis was actually over there. They did some tank shots with the double and everything. So we're crazy, we're young, and we're gonna have some fun. Well, we pull pranks on each other all the time. And we pulled one on Elvis, because his co-star was Juliet Prowse, who was engaged to Frank Sinatra at the time, the chairman of the board, right? So Elvis warmed her up. She was kind of aloof when they first started, but his charm, man, he had the charm. He warmed her up. Pretty soon she was all over him, you know. But anyway, Red one day we're sitting there, and they have a portable dressing room that they roll over to the sound stages, because all the stars have a permanent dressing room there on the lot. But they use these ones on rollers that they take a little tow truck and they bring them to the different sound stages. All it is it's on wheels, it's got the door, you step up to it, and it's got a couch here, it's got a closet there for hanging wardrobe, and it's got the mirror here for the makeup and everything. So their door is closed, we're out there, and Red knocked on that door and said, Elvis, here comes Frank. Boy, about 2 minutes, that door went, where? You know, Red, I just kidding. He said, Red, don't do that again. I'll get you, man. Don't do that again. So we did it again, a couple of more times. He ends up chasing us around the studio. Then one day, here comes Frank. Remember the old cry wolf story? Well, I wasn't crying wolf. I knocked that door, because it was at lunchtime, and the soundstage doors are real big. So where they bring the equipment and they just roll them open and let the stage air out for that morning shoot, what all was going on with the dust and everything. And there's that silhouette with that little pork pie hat and that little suit and those little dap. And I thought, oh man, here comes Frank Elvis. Him and Juliet are in there. Get away from that door. I said, Elvis, I'm not kidding you. I'm keeping my voice now because I don't want him to hear me telling him that here he comes. So I knocked. Elvis, I'm not kidding. It's Sonny. Open the door, man. You better get away from that door. Okay. Here he comes. He comes up. Hey, fellas, how y'all doing? Hi, Miss Sinatra. How you doing? Yes, sir. We're doing good. He said, we all seen Juliet? And I said, yes, sir. They're here going over their lines right there. And Elvis and Juliet, probably Juliet said, that's Frank. So pretty, real quick, that door opened. Elvis said, well, hello, Frank, like you just now seen him, you know, because I didn't even get a chance to knock. And so he said, see what happens, guys, with Cry Wolf? And we looked at him and said, was anything going on? He said, no, your damn business. Just don't cry wolf anymore, you know? So that's the way that did. And then another thing we did, another thing was a water fight we had. Start off, got these pistols, little water pistols that you could buy back at the drugstore and toy store. And we're shooting each other everywhere. The crew's getting in on it. They're stealing our guns when we set them down so that they can shoot us. And it's going along, but by the time we got back to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, now we've graduated to buckets of water. The waste baskets, filling them up. Boom. Suite got wet. Hallway got wet. And then Red, we jumped Elvis and pinned him down. I grabbed his legs, and I was holding on to his legs. Joe Esposito was around his waist, having his arms pinned. And Red's up there doing something I didn't know, or I wouldn't have been in on it. Taking his hand and rubbing Elvis's nose. Elvis had an extremely sensitive nose. And he's rubbing that thing hard, and Elvis is cussing. "Go, man, let me go." And I can feel that body. I think, we're getting ready. He's going to get loose. About the time Red said, "Let's go." Well, he jumped up, went that way, and I jumped up, let go of the legs, and I got out. He caught Joe. Joe tried to pull him down, boy, pound, started pounding on Joe. Joe's trying to roll away from him. He's kicking him, you know. not to really hurt him, but he's kicking him, calling him names. "You were part of it, this and that." He gets a guitar and he hits Joe hits his elbow. And Joe, "Ow, that gum, that hurt you. I don't care." And he tried to hit him again. Then he comes looking for Red now. We're smart. We're out in the hallway where we can move on if we need to. He comes out that door and he sees us, boy, he takes that guitar and he slings it at us. And that thing comes sailing through. And about that time, they had permanent guests in that hotel. And this guy heard this ruckus, and he opened, little old guy, opened that door, and that guitar went whoosh, right by him. He looked down there and he slammed that door and went back inside. And a few minutes later, the phone rang, assistant manager, "What's going on up there?" What do you mean? "Mr. So-and-so across the hallway said that y'all out there throwing guitars and everything else in the hallway." I said, "Not us." Well, we were asked to move. So he was kicked out of Knickerbocker, too, in the 50s, so it wasn't nothing new. He didn't really trash him, but we did get the carpet wet and things like that. But it was, I'd like to regress here, if I could, while we're talking about this movie that I was first with him on. In 1956, he went out to make a movie called Love Me Tender. It's a very sweet story about his mom. And in the movie, you all know that Elvis died up on that mountain. And so when they saw the preview of it, and his mom and dad were there with him, and they were watching at Fox at a studio they had there, and she started crying. "You shouldn't have died." He said, "Mom, I didn't. That's just a part." She said, No. That boy in that picture shouldn't have died. He was such a sweet boy." Talking about Elvis's character, you know. So he said, "Well, Mom, that's just the way they make movies out here." So they left. Now the studio sends out sneak previews along with comment cards about what you think of the movie, what you like, what you didn't like, this and that. About 90% of them came back, loved the movie, this. Elvis shouldn't have died. Studio said, "We got a problem. Got a major star here that we're getting ready to break. Got a good movie." And they don't like it, the ending. And you know how Hollywood is, that ending. Back then, you got to have that great ending with the curtains blowing, music playing, and everything's just going to be wonderful. So they brought Elvis back, and they shot a new ending. Because see, at that time, during that movie, he died on that mountain. That was it. That's the last thing you saw of him, his character. They brought him back, and they superimposed him big on the screen, playing the guitar, with that sweet smile on his face, and he's kind of looking over the ranch like he's up in heaven. And he's looking out for everyone he loves down there. That was great. Fans loved it. They accepted it. So it went out and got good reviews and everything. But that, his mom was right on, you know, because a lot of other people said he shouldn't have died. Because if y'all remember, he was such an innocent young kid on that thing. The character he played is just someone that you don't want someone like that to die. So he didn't, you know. Well, he did, but he didn't. But also, out there on that movie, by the way, 2 movies that Elvis died in. Both of them were at Fox, and both of them were Westerns. He died in Love Me Tender, and he died also in the movie Flaming Star, which I'll tell you about right now, because before the movie started, we had to go out there for him to pick out the horse that he wanted to ride in the movie. They got about 6 or 7 horses there for him to choose from, and the two wranglers there. So Elvis goes over and he picks out this big horse, big red. He says, "Yeah, I like the looks of him. How about him?" So they tightened the saddle up. Elvis got up on it. Him and the head wrangler took off and went out. This is on 20th Century Fox, which is now Century City. But it used to be a huge back lot there with western towns and country homes and all kind of scary houses. They just, where they shot these movies. So they take off, and us guys, 3 or 4 of us sitting there, we're thinking, boy, we'd like to get on that horse, those other horses, and go out there and ride with them, So we're just kind of sitting there, and all of a sudden we hear there's ruckus. "Whoa, you son of a, whoa!" And we look, and here comes Elvis, and that horse is running away with him. Elvis's legs are flopping out, he's hanging on to that thing, man, that horn. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, and it's scary. It was funny later like we're doing now, but at the time it was scary. And there's a little gate that comes in where they load the stock in. And I thought, that horse not gonna make that gate, man. Elvis gonna get thrown. And I'm scared for him. And that horse comes to that gate because he wants to come back to where he was. And as he makes that turn, those back legs spread out, Elvis hangs on, goes way over here on this side, and that horse gets them together, and he goes back on this side. It's almost like slow motion. And then he runs in, and he makes it through the gate. He comes in, and there's a lean-to with a 2x4 in front of the stalls, and he runs in there, and Elvis saw it, and he ducked his head. And I tell you, he could have been killed with a broken neck. It could have been very bad. So nobody was anything except upset at what we were seeing. That horse came to a dead stop when he got in there. Elvis jumped off that horse. "You son of a bitch." Boom! Hit that horse right in the jaw. The horse whinnied and everything, took a little step, and he said, "No." And about that time, the wrangler come up, and Elvis didn't want him seeing. He hit him. He's a good horse. He's a good horse. And he started stroking his forehead. Well, that wrangler comes up, and now he's upset. He's just white. He's scared because the picture hadn't even started, and Elvis could have gotten hurt badly. The movie put back for shooting, and he would never get another wrangling job. So he comes up, "Mr. Presley," he jumps off. "Are you okay?" He said, "Oh yeah, I'm okay." Petting that horse. He said, could I have those reins?" He takes the reins, he takes that horse, walks him out to the middle of the corral. He gets up on top of him, and he spurs him good. And that horse lurches forward, and he jerks that rein. The horse stops. He did it again, several times. Horse starts frothing at the mouth here. He's getting hot. He's upset. He's being stressed out. All of a sudden, little speckles of blood appear. No, it's his mouth. And he explained to us, he said, the horse hadn't been ridden for a while. His mouth hardened up. I had to tenderize it again. Well, boy, that guy could start to spur him. Even if that horse thought he was going to, he'd start and he'd go. But that horse just stopped. That's all it was. So when he had that done, he got off of him and said, "Elvis, if you'll pick out another horse, we'll try this again." He said, "No, I want him. He's a crazy son of a bitch. Try something again." That's what Jesus did to him. So that's the horse he rode, and he didn't give him a problem the whole show, There was something else Elvis liked to do besides breaking horses, and that was play football. I'm just kidding about the breaking horses, but that's what he just about had to do with that horse. But there's a little park over there near where we lived at Bel Air now, after we've been moved over, and it was called Beverly Glen. It was right next to the estates there in Bel Air. And we would go down there and play footballs on Saturday, and then we would watch, of course, the pro football games on Sunday. He was a big Johnny Unitas fan for the Colts and a big Jim Brown fan of the Cleveland Browns. So we went down there, and word got around, not only just in the Hollywood scene, but other people started coming up there wanting to play. Cheerleaders started gathering up there, wanting to cheerlead. But anyway, some celebrities that came out. One of them was Michael Parks. And he was in that series then came Bronson. He did a lot of movies and stuff too. You'd know him if you saw him, but if you remember that series, he did that. And another guy there that did a series, his name was, I'll tell you about him because he played football for UCLA. And that's a whole different story with Ricky Nelson and what he tried to pull. But Pat Boone came up there once. A little rough. Ty Harden from Bronco came up there, tough guy. He played ball in college and everything too. So we had a lot of good times up there. Ricky Nelson heard about it. Well, Ricky idolized Elvis, but he also wanted to beat Elvis in football. So he goes to UCLA and he's got some friends that play on the football team at UCLA that also worked on his series with his mom. He actually played a college friend of Ricky's. He brings about 5 or 6 of them over there. And you know what? We held our own. We didn't do extra points. We just scored a touchdown, and that was 6 points, and we kicked or threw the ball to the other team. And they beat us 18-12. But I got to tell you something. There was a guy on that team called Kent McWhirter. He's about 6'2", about 240 pounds, and it was all muscle. Well, Alan Fortas, who worked for Elvis, had made All-State at Central High School there in Memphis when he played ball. He got a scholarship to Vanderbilt. And he went there, and then he dropped out after a year or two and quit playing. And I think he even dropped out of college. But he was a good little ball player, but he was short and stocky, and he wasn't very fast. So Kent was doing spin-offs of him and coming right on in and getting in the backfield every play. So Elvis said, "Sonny, you and Alan switch places." I said, "Okay, I don't know what I'm in for now." I'd go over there and I thought, uh-oh. I'm about 190 pounds at that time. So we line up, and sure enough, boy, he comes exploding across that line, and our shoulders hit, and I thought a truck hit me. God. So I kept him out a lot of the time, and he got in sometimes. But when I went to shower at the end of that game up at the house, I could barely lift my arm up to wash my face and my hair, shampoo it. And over the next 2 or 3 days, I couldn't. Had to shave with my left hand. This was just nothing but a big black and blue, hurting, painful hurt. And so all that week, I'm just at the end of the week starting to get a little bit better, and I'm thinking, man, I hope they don't come back over there. I don't want a rematch, and they didn't come back. But I ran into Ken over the years, and in fact, we studied acting together at an acting class out in the San Fernando Valley, and I got to know him real good then, and he's only 180 pounds. Without the weightlifting, his normal weight was about 180. And you wouldn't know him as Kent McWhirter. You would know him as Kent McCord of 1 Adam 12. That was Kent, and we became really good friends over the years. But anyway, we had a place that we went down in Palm Springs that Elvis rented home, because Colonel Parker had a home down there, and he was always saying, "Elvis, you need to get a place there for you guys to get away on the weekends and come down there and relax, you know?" And Elvis said, okay. So we went down there first time. We stayed in a hotel called the Spa that they had down there. And Elvis did like it. So we got a house that he wanted to rent. So he rented this house. And I've got about 3 stories that I want to tell you all about that, but they all took place at different times, of course. This first one took place in the early 60s, and it's about boxing and grass. Another word for grass is pot, so you don't misunderstand. Elvis got it. Someone gave him these 2 or 3 joints. So they had these Friday night fights live from the Olympic Auditorium in downtown LA. Eileen Eaton and Mickey, co-promoter, I can't think of his name right now. So we would go down and we'd watch them. So Elvis told everyone to stay out, just Red and Sonny and I are going to watch the fights, because the rest of the guys didn't care that much for the fights or anything. So we got in there and we lit up and smoked those joints. We're watching that fight, and we're watching that fight, and it's the longest fight in the world. And I said, man, this is this is the longest fight I've ever seen. Red said, it's the longest round I've ever seen. And I said, how do you know what round it is? He said, well, look at the TV right there. See the 12? It's the 12th round. He's pointing to the channel that's lit up. Back then, they had these knobs that you turned. They didn't have remotes. You turned the knobs, and it had a little lit up window, and whatever channel it was, that's what was lit up. So Elvis said, Red, that's not the round, man. That's the channel. Red said, oh, God, didn't know that. And fell back. So a little bit later, we're back into watching that fight again, stoned out of our gourds, man. And Red gets up, takes a book of matches, and he goes over, gets in front of the television, lights a match, puts his hand over that 12, and starts going up and down the front of the television with that light. And Elvis said, what are you doing? He said, I'm trying to find the round. Elvis said, Red, it doesn't show you the round. He said, but I saw it. He said, no, it's the channel. Move your hand. Oh, he fell out again. This time he hit his head and looked like a dead frog laying there, man. Elvis fell off the couch laughing. So we went ahead and watched the fights, and it got over with, and we were hungry. Red and I were hungry. Elvis went on back to his room. So we go into the kitchen, and Red makes himself a ham and cheese sandwich. I have a taste for a BLT. I get the bacon out, tomatoes and lettuce and everything, the bread, and I start frying that bacon. And boy, that bacon just will not fry. It's just so slow, and I'm like, come on, come on. Red finished his sandwich talking about it's the best sandwich he's ever had. Man, that sandwich is good. I'm gonna have another one. So he has another one. I'm still waiting for my bacon to fry, you know? So finally, it's done, and Red is getting ready. He's done with his 2 sandwiches, and he leaves and goes back to his bed. So I finally have my sandwich ready. And I'm just about ready to get into it, and Elvis comes around the corner. What are you doing, Sonny? I said, oh, I made a BLT. He said, I know, I smell that bacon, man. And could you make me one? Well, Elvis did have an insomnia problem, as long as I've known him. Sleepwalking and insomnia. And he took medication to go to sleep at night. But if you took it on an empty stomach, it would hit you good and you'd go on out. If you had just eaten something, it wouldn't work as good. So I looked at him, and I knew how long it took me to make that bacon. I said, have you taken your sleeping pill yet? Oh, yeah. I go, here, take this one. You'll never make it, man. So he took it. I get the stuff out, and I start making another sandwich. I'm starved. And I'm making it, and I get to thinking, Elvis going to want this one, too. He's never eaten one sandwich in his life. So I'm thinking, trying to get that bacon. I'm throwing the grease on top of it, trying to make it cook quicker and everything. And I get it done, boy, and I just dive into it. Because I know if I've bitten into it, he won't want it. And I'm just watching. And he didn't, so I just started enjoying my sandwich. I put my stuff up and went to bed. I was a happy warrior, you know. But that stuff, it's true, man. Food tastes better. And things do last longer. But anyway, another story. Back then was with Vice President Agnew. And this took place like before, this was in the late 60s. He's down there staying at Frank Sinatra or some celebrity's home. And Elvis finds out about it from some police people we knew down there. So Elvis wants to give him a gift. So we go over there, it's in a cul-de-sac, Secret Service out there, and we drive up. Elvis gets out, and he's got this box. It's a gun in there that he wants to present to Vice President Agnew. It's a .357 Magnum with gold inlay in it, the ivory handle with black etching in it. It's just a beautiful gun. I think it cost him about $3,000, custom made. So the Secret Service takes it in. We go inside. We meet the Vice President. Nice man. We're talking and everything. And after a while, Elvis said, Mr. Vice President, I wanted to give you a gift. And this is before the Nixon thing, okay? And he said, I wanted to give you a gift. And so I brought it over. And he said, one of your Secret Service guys here has it. So he brought it out, and he opened it up and showed it. A beautiful gun. He said, oh, this is absolutely beautiful. He said, but I can't take this, Elvis, while I'm in office. And but I'd certainly like to have it when I get out of office. And Elvis said, yes, sir, that's fine. I'll hold on to it for you. So went ahead and held on to it for him. And I don't know how long after that Vice President Agnew had to resign from office. And we told Elvis, said, Elvis, you can give him that gun now. He's not in office. He said, no, he don't get the gun. He's a damn crook. He got caught. So Agnew never got the gun, you know. But now here's a favorite of Tim, my friend Tim Rochford. I got to tell this story. You don't know how much Elvis counted on us guys until you hear this story. It's regarding a taxi in Palm Springs, California. We get down there, everyone goes to their rooms. We get up the next morning. There's about 4 or 5 of us. The other guys, they take off in one of the cars and they go shopping. I look and know that I've got to get some bacon and eggs, tomatoes and things like that, toast and things for Elvis's breakfast when he wakes up later in the afternoon. I don't know it. Elvis is already awake. None of us knew it, but he's already back there getting ready to come out. And that's unheard of. So I leave. I guess he walked out right after me, after I was gone. And he said he called out, nobody answered. He went all through the rooms he's never even been in before. He didn't even know they were there. And couldn't find anybody. So he decides to call a taxi because he wants to go shopping. So he picks up the phone. Well, Elvis never did this. He would just say, get Daddy on the phone, get Priscilla on the phone, get the Colonel on the phone, and we would dial it and give him the phone. He'd talk. When he was done, he'd hang up. So he picked up the phone and dialed the operator. Told her he needed a taxi. She said, I don't do that, sir. He said, well, what do you do? She said, well, I help with person-to-person calls and collect calls and things like that, but you need to get a hold of information to get the number for a taxi. He says, okay, how do I do that? She said, dial 411. He went ahead and said, okay, and he hung up and he dialed. She answers. He said, yes, ma'am, I need the number of a taxi. And she said, which one? He said, it doesn't matter, any one of them. She said, no, sir, which company? We got several here. We got Yellow Cab. Elvis knew that one. Everyone knows Yellow Cab. He said, that'll be fine. That's good. So she gave him the number. He calls the number. Dispatcher answers the phone. May I help you? Yes, I'd like to have a taxi cab come pick me up, please. All right, sir, what's that address? I don't know. He didn't know the address. I got to tell you, I didn't know the address. I knew where the house was, but I don't even remember the name of the street either. But she said, you want a cab and you don't even know the address? He said, well, no, I'm just down here visiting. I'm just leasing a home and everything, and I don't live here. And she said, well, what street is it on? He said, I don't know that either, ma'am. She said, is this some kind of joke? He said, no, ma'am, it's not. My name, I'm Elvis Presley. Oh, you are? I'm Elvis Presley, and I just leased this house from Jack L. Warner. Well, everybody in Palm Springs knew who Jack L. Warner was. He owned Warner Brothers Studio. He was the head guy. Had a huge home down there. We weren't actually in his home. We were in his guest house, which was a 4-bedroom with a pool and everything. And that was just the guest house on the estate. And she said, oh, you're Elvis Presley, and you're at the Jack L. Warner home. Well, I know where that is, and I'm going to send a cab over there. And Elvis Presley better come out and get in it. He said, ma'am, why are you being that way? She said, I'm just kidding you, but I think you're kidding me. So anyway, I'm going to send a cab over there. So she did. Well, the cab driver gets over there, buzzes the intercom, because you have to have a key to get in or out. Or you can open it from inside. In the box there, when they buzz, you can talk to them and say, just a minute, or they can identify themselves, and then you hit a button and it opens. Elvis didn't know where this box was. He heard that cab driver's voice. Taxi's here. Okay, I'll be right out. Taxi's here. And he knew then the guy wasn't hearing him. He didn't know how to talk back to the guy. He said, I'm coming right out. Don't leave. So he runs out there and he goes up to the gate, big 7.5-foot so gate, solid. Not one of the wrought irons you see through. It's solid for privacy, and big stucco fence about 7.5 feet. Can't see through. He comes out there. He can't open the gate. He doesn't have a key. There's no button there or anything to do. And he says, don't go, man. He said, my name's Elvis. And he said, I know. dispatcher told me it was Elvis Presley wanting the cab. He said, well, I'll be there. If I crawl over this thing, just don't go. And I pull up. I see the cab driver there, and I say, can I help you? And he said, well, maybe not me, but the guy on that fence said he's Elvis Presley on the other side, and he can't get his gate open. I called out. I said, Elvis, Sonny, open this gate. I went over and turned that key, and that gate opened up, and he come storming out of there. Where you been? I said, I went to get some food for you for breakfast. I thought you was asleep. Where's the rest of them? I said, they went shopping. Without me? I want to go shopping. I said, well, we'll go. Let me put the food up and everything, and we'll go. He said, give that guy $100. I walk over to that cab driver, and I peel off a $100 bill, and I give it to him, and he, oh, thanks, Elvis. You ever need me again, man, just call me, okay? So that guy, 5 minutes, man, $100, you know. But that's just a thing to show how much Elvis was protected, how much was done for him. And it just started, and it just grew and grew. The bigger he got, the more things that he did, the less he did that we do every day just for, just take for granted and everything. But I'd like to tell you some stories, too. While we're up there in Bel Air, there's a story about a chimpanzee that Elvis got. Y'all have heard about it. His name was Scatter. And Elvis asked this guy that he got him from, why'd you name him that? He says, because when he gets mad, you better scatter. They're very strong. They have been known to take cyclone fences and just pull them apart when they're mad. Just open them up. So we said, well, what makes him that way? He said, oh, you probably won't see him that way. He'll just bite you or something. He had no fangs, but boy, he could sure pinch and draw blood with those teeth if he didn't like you doing what you were trying to make him to do. So Alan got the responsibility for taking care of him, Alan Fortas. And Elvis had him dress him up because it was from a show. He was a trained chimp from a guy that was retiring, and he was closing down his show, and Elvis heard about it, and he bought the chimp from him. So he had Alan dress him up in his little yacht hat with his ascot and his little suit and everything and the pants, put him in the back of the limousine, and Alan get up there like a chauffeur and drive him around. And that champ's just sitting back there in that car back there like I guess he did it all the time because he was trained for the show or whatever. But it was funny to watch, and I really think probably a lot of people back then thought that probably was Cheetah, who was the chimpanzee for Superman. I mean, for Superman. For Tarzan, because who else what other chimp would be driving around like that, being chauffeur driven? But Scatter liked to drink. He'd go, if you set your drink down and he was out, and take off. He'd just drink it down. And he'd get drunk and cause a problem. He went ahead and swung on a curtain and knocked a hole right through a big movie screen there in the room at Bellagio there where we watched movies. And he just knocked a hole right through it. And Elvis just died laughing. Didn't bother him. And one time he got loose there, and he swung on the phone lines in the basement down there where his room was, in his cage. He tore all the phone wires loose. It took him 3 days to get them sorted. Which ones went to intercom, which ones for line 1, which one was Elvis's private line. And it took him 3 days to sort it out because he just swung on them and ripped them right off the ceiling. Then he got out one time, and that was his downfall. He chased the next door neighbor's gardener into the pool. Little Japanese guy, screaming and yelling, took off, jumped into that pool, screaming and yelling. People come out of the house, and there's Scatter, doing this on the side of the pool, just warning that guy, don't come out. Well, we got a letter from the Bel Air Homeowners Association, no exotic pets. So little Scatter had to be shipped back to Graceland, and Elvis had a beautiful, custom-made place, temperature controlled, air conditioning, heat, and everything, for him. And but let me tell you what happened. Wasn't long, Scatter died. He was young, about 6 or 7 years old. They lived to be 40 or 50. And he, one day they went out to feed him, he was dead. And we found out that chimpanzees can actually will themselves to death. They give up. If they're lonely, they're like humans. They have to have comfort, and they have to have, communication with each other. And one by himself just gives up, and he did. he was so used to being drunk and crazy, and all of a sudden now he's just sitting out there and people come out and feed him. That's about it. Elvis, really, we didn't go out there and visit with him that much. But anyway, Elvis really loved that chimp and everything. But there's a lot of stories that I wish I could recall all of them. I really do, so that I could tell you, because he was really upset when that chimp died. And then again, he was able to move on. He's able to get by it and move on. And when that cage stayed there, Elvis never had it torn down, never put anything else in it, but he didn't have it torn down. I think a long time later that they might have removed that building. Vernon might have done it, because I can't remember in the latter years, but for years it just stayed out there. Some of the guys thought that maybe one of the maids had poisoned him, because he bit them too when they fed him. There was one, Daisy, that just couldn't stand him. So we thought it best. We didn't think about that at the time, and later on, when someone said that they think she might have done it, it was too late to check him out and see what kind of toxic level he had of arsenic or something in him, you know. But anyway, scatter was scatter, and Elvis had a lot of fun with him. I'd like to tell y'all now a very moving story, one that still touches me today, almost like the one with my uncle and with Elvis, the first time I saw him like that. There was an appeal story written in the Commercial Appeal there, morning paper in Memphis. And it was an article regarding this little woman that had no legs from the hips down. She was born that way. She had had children, raised them. She would even raise, they had in the story, she had raised some of her grandchildren. And this appeal story was that how she got around on some wood that was nailed together, and underneath they had these roller skates nailed to it, and they had these special handles with some like a leather thing, and she'd pull herself along like skiers do on snow skis and everything. And so Marty read it, Marty Lacker, and he brought it up to the house, and I was sitting there with Elvis at the dining room table, and Marty said, "Elvis, when you get a chance, I think you might want to read this." And I said, "Okay." He finished eating, and he picked over the paper and he looked at it. He looked up after he read it and said, "Find out where she lives." So Marty did call the paper. Elvis went and bought the most expensive electric wheelchair made. And he and Priscilla, Marty, Alan, Richard, and I think Billy and myself went out there. And it was in the trunk of the car. We took it up to the house. Her husband, who was retired from the railroad, let us in. And he called her out. She came out, we heard her come around that corner. The house was spotless, boards bleached white, carpet, the linoleum in the kitchen just shiny, and comes out and we heard her. She comes around that corner face to face with that wheelchair. Oh my, oh my. And tears started coming to her eyes. She knew what it was. And tears came to our eyes. She asked if she could sit in it. We lifted her up, Elvis on the one side and I on the other, put her there, and she's checking it out. And Elvis said, "Ma'am, now, I don't know how to tell you how to operate this thing," but he said, they demonstrated over there, and this here you can just go wherever you want to and get there fast and everything. So he said, "We just wanted you to have it." She starts crying, we start crying, and soon we're out of there. We have to get out of there. We walked outside and Alan said, "Elvis, I don't think she knew who you were." He said, "It doesn't matter. She knows someone cares." You know, everyone knows through papers, articles, books, and everything about Elvis's generosity. It was almost to a fault. He just gave and gave and gave. He loved to give, and he loved the reaction that when you gave him, after he gave you something, he didn't want you to fawn all over him. He didn't want you to keep saying it. He didn't want you to come day after day. Oh, Elvis, I can't. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't have time for that. So you thanked him, and then you moved on. One night we were coming back. He was getting a custom-made bus done by George Barris, who made all those monster cars and all those things for television, those shows. And he was doing Elvis's bus and customizing it. So Elvis, Marty Lacker, Billy Smith, Elvis' cousin, myself, went out there to look at it one night. It was in May out in California, and we're driving Elvis's Rolls-Royce limo. I'm driving. We get out there, see the bus, and we're talking about it, and George met us, and he's saying, this is coming along. It's starting to come together, and then we left. We came on back. It's a beautiful night. Clear, stars are up there and everything, and Elvis, all of a sudden, while we're driving up through Bel Air, getting close to home, he says, you know what? This is baby blue convertible night. We said, yeah, it is, Elvis. He said, Sonny, turn this car around. Let's go to that Cadillac place. I turned it around. We go over to a place called Hillcrest Cadillac over there on Wilshire Boulevard. I park the car. We go inside. Salesman in there. It's somewhere around 8 o'clock at night, I guess. And Elvis introduced himself as if he needed to, but that's just the way he was. Hi, I'm Elvis Presley. And he said, do you have a baby blue Cadillac convertible here? He said, no, sir, we don't. We don't, but I'll find you one. I'm sure there's a dealer somewhere around. He wasn't going to lose that sale, you know, if he could, if he could help it. And Elvis said, oh, okay. And so he said, okay. Well, as we had been riding over, Elvis often had said how much he loved the colors black and white for a car, that he'd usually rather have a black or a white car because you get tired of colors. When we walked in that showroom, and I had talked to him, I said, Elvis, you sure you want blue? When we walked in there, it was a black Eldorado convertible right there on that showroom floor with the mahogany accent. It's a beautiful car. I said, Elvis, you sure, man, about that blue one? He said, man, that's pretty. Yeah, but I want that blue one. And we let it go. So when he said he could find one, he said, Marty, you stay in here with him and see what y'all can find. Billy, Sonny, let's go over across the street. So we went over across the street to the used car lot part of Hillcrest. All kind of Cadillacs there, man. A few convertibles. We're walking through, no blue one. And I think that's what he's looking for, that if this guy can't find one, Elvis wants that blue convertible, whether he gives it away the next day, he wants it that night. You know, that's where he wanted things. So he said, it's not here what I'm looking for. He said, where's that other Cadillac place? I said, well, farther down Wilshire, there's a Lou Ehlers down near Fairfax or La Brea. He said, let's go. Billy, tell Marty we're going somewhere else. We'll be back in a few minutes. So we went down there and I pulled in. I let Elvis and Billy out up there at the door. And I backed the Rolls Royce back over in the corner there and got it out of the way. And I got out and I walked. And as I get to the door, Elvis and Billy and the salesman are coming out the door of the showroom. And I stopped and everything. And Elvis said, like that one there, Sonny, like black on black. And I looked, and there's this beautiful 1963, couple of years old, Eldorado convertible, black interior, leather. I said, there, El, that's what you're talking about, man. That blue can't hold up to that. He said, well, maybe you're right. But he said, that's not my car, it's your car. Put the keys out. And I looked at him, I said, no, it's not either. No, it's not. And I turned around, I walked away. I went back and got into the Rolls Royce. Got behind that driver's seat. Elvis comes over, gets into the passenger seat, said, what's wrong with you? I said, nothing's wrong, Elvis. You don't need to buy a car for me, man. He just bought me a motorcycle a few months earlier. I drove his cars when I needed a car. I said, you know, Elvis, you always seem to be giving, and we always seem to be taking. And I don't want you to think you have to do that. He said, Sonny, you guys are giving when you don't know you're giving. I put a lot on you over the years, but you handle it. And this is just my way of showing you I appreciate that. And I said, well, It's nice, but just think that. If you think it, that's okay with me. He said, son, you can't tell me when you were a little boy that you didn't sit on that curb and watch Cadillacs go by and think one day, because when you had a Cadillac back then, you had arrived. Man, you were it. And he said, and wish someday that you would have one. I said, well, Elvis, every kid does that. Everyone. He said, I know what I did it. And he said, you know what? Here, you've got yours. Now let's go get mine. I hugged him. I said, okay, let's go. So we left. He drove the Rolls Royce limo with Billy with him, and I put the top wasn't down. I put that top down. And we head back up to the other place. We get up there and we walk in, and Elvis walking, and the salesman, Marty, Elvis, they found one over in Long Beach. They're going to service it and they're going to bring it on over. Elvis looked at the salesman and said, sir, would it be a problem to cancel that order and me take this one? He changed his mind. He wanted that black one. And he said, no, sir. So he made the call and canceled. Never mind, he's going to buy one here. He's getting one here. So he said something about having it delivered. It'd be ready to pick up tomorrow. We can deliver it. I was, no, I'm taking that tonight. He said, Mr. Presley, he said, it's got to be serviced. I said, it's got break-in oil in it. I know that. New cars have break-in oil that you get changed real quick after you buy the car. And he said, well, yeah, but I don't know if it's got gas. I said, give me the keys. I knew Elvis wanted that car. I went over and I put that key in, I turned it, and that needle moved just a hair. I said, it's got enough to get us to the gas station, Elvis. So we drove out of there with it. We pulled that right off the showroom. Elvis got it behind it. Billy got in with him. Marty got in the Rolls Royce driving it, and I was in my car. We went up to the service station, gassed up, and went on up to the house. We picked up the rest of the guys. Elvis got Priscilla. He's got his top down because it was down. It was down when it was on the showroom floor. So we're going to go for a ride. So we come out of Bel Air and we head down Sunset Boulevard going towards the beach. Well, as you get lower and lower towards the beach, it gets cooler and cooler. The guy in the back with me in the back seat of my car said, Sonny, man, put that top up. It's cold back here. I said, no way. No way that top, unless he puts his top up, this top stays down, guys. But I turned on the heater and I put the side windows up. And they're huddled up right up between the seats, just letting those heater blow on them and everything, and they're huddled like this here. So we get down there a little bit, and I think Elvis feels it's a little bit cool too. And I don't know whether anyone complained or not, but all of a sudden, he makes a U-turn on Pacific Coast Highway because we were headed towards Malibu. And he turns around, and as he turns, I watch him, and his side windows are up. I don't know if he's got the heater on or not, but his side windows, so I make the turn, we get back up to the house, and everyone's talking about the car and everything, and then they go inside, but not me. I'm walking around, and I'm looking at that car. I just can't believe this is my car. It is absolutely beautiful. And then I finally went in, and Elvis, what do you think? I said, Elvis, I think I'm going to go back out there for a little while, you know. He said, no, it'll be there tomorrow. Come on, stay in here. Let's talk about it. Next day, he goes out and he starts buying more Cadillac convertibles for the rest of the guys. He bought a black one for red, just like mine, except it had red leather interior. And we're the only two that got the black ones. The rest of them had white and gold, and nobody got a blue one though. He didn't buy anyone a baby blue one. But there was all different colors, 2 or 3 whites, a couple of golds, a light gray, and a maroon. And it took us about a week to find them, but he found them all, and I think it was something like 8 or 9 Cadillacs that he bought in a week's time. And it started looking like a caravan, you know, with all these different color convertibles driving around. Everybody wanted to take their car. We went, Elvis, no, we ain't going to be taking the car. Get in our car. You know, we're not going to have 8, 9 Cadillacs going down the road. So, but that was just his generosity, like the wheelchair in one way from his heart with the need that this woman had. And we didn't have a need, but he just wanted us to be happy and share in some of his wealth and what he had. And that was his way of doing it. I used to joke about when I went to work for him, I was making $75 a week over at the appliance store. But when I went to work for him, my salary was $35 a week. Over half cut. But let me tell you something. That 35 was like $1,000 a week. I drove Cadillac cars. I stayed in the best hotels. I ate the best food. My clothes were done. My dry cleaning was done. I had to do one thing. I had to pay for my cigarettes. They were 25 cents a pack. You know how many packs $35 will buy you a week? But anyway, that was part of it. But while we were up in that home where he did this, there was one night he asked me to go outside with him in the backyard of this home that Perugia Way, the first home we had moved in out of the hotel, but we left it after a couple of years, went to another home, and then they remodeled it. They wanted him back, so they remodeled it the way that he said, I need another bathroom off the master bedroom. They did it, and we came back to that home, and that's where we ended up meeting the Beatles. And I know there's one Beatle fan in here. I know that for sure. We'll get to that in a second. Stanley. But he said, let's go outside. So we went out there, and we're talking and everything, and he's just being quiet. And all of a sudden he says, son, you see that light over there? And I look over and I see a light off over in the distance. I said, well, yeah. I said, plane. He said, uh-uh. I said, oh, okay. But lights coming closer and closer and closer. I'm waiting for the sound of a prop or a helicopter or a jet engine. I'm waiting for some sort of sound and say, no, Elvis, it's a plane. There is no sound. And it's getting closer and closer, and there's a tree line there around the golf course, and it just kind of went and disappeared behind the trees there, and I still am not hearing a sound. He says, go in there and get Jerry. So I went in the house and got Jerry, and we come back, Elvis not there. We started calling for him. He's not answering. Jerry said, where'd he go? I said, I don't know. And I told you, I said, there was a light he wanted you to see that was coming from across the sky that went over in here and everything. I said, you go up one side of the house and I'll go up the other and we'll go out and see if he's out front. Went out there, he wasn't out there. Now, folks, I got to tell you, I'm young at that time. I'm about 26 years old. I'm starting to think, what is going on here? Because Elvis had acted weird sometimes, you know, moving, making bushes quiver and move, and clouds form and dissipate, you know. And so we're hollering out there, and all of a sudden, I hear this voice, I'm down here, guys. And we look down, he's about 3 houses down in the driveway. So we hurry down there to him and everything. So, what are you doing? What are you doing down here? He said, oh, nothing. He said, that light, they're gone. I said, who's gone? He said, they're gone, but they'll be back. I said, okay, I'd like to meet him, Elvis. You will. And he was serious. He said, you will. We went back up to the house. I talked with Jerry. I said, yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. It was like, he said, well, son, it was a plane. I said, Jerry, I got to tell you, there was no sound. There was no engine. There was no noise. And I was in the Air Force. I know what airplanes sound like. And there was no sound. I don't know what it was. Could have been a dead stick plane, you know, engine dead or something, but it came a long way with no engine. But we didn't talk about it anymore, and he didn't bring it up. I never asked him, did they come back yet over the years? I never asked him that. But that's the way it was. But that's the house where we met the Beatles, Stanley. You know, a lot of people ask me about that. What was that like? Because they're Beatle fans and Elvis fans. Well, I love the music of the Beatles. I thought they were extremely talented. I love their movies. They're crazy. It's like a bunch of Elvises all together. They were each crazy, you know. And a lot of fun. You could see it that they had fun. And that reminded me of our group. We weren't singers or entertainers, but we still pulled jokes and just had crazy times with each other. And they came up there. They've been wanting to meet him since the last year in '64, but Elvis making movies and everything, and he just wasn't available. So this time it's arranged for them to come up there and to the house and say hi to him. But when they come in, John Lennon has been quoted, you know, by saying the statement that Elvis, and he said, before Elvis there was nothing. And John, prolific songwriter, so I knew how he meant that. And most people did. It's pretty evident. And then they asked the group about, did Elvis have any impression on you? Did he influence you in any way? And Ringo Starr went, I don't know what you mean, man. And started doing Elvis's shimmying and stuff, you know. Right? This is on a press conference. So we died laughing at that. But when they came in, Elvis stayed inside there, and he's watching television. Got a big couch. It goes like this here, chairs over to the side, and he's sitting there in his favorite seat watching. And the Beatles come in. Elvis gets up and says, "Hey, guys." He reaches out and he shakes their hand. He knows them by name, you know, Paul, John, George, Ringo. And they're just looking at him. They're not saying nothing. It's like frozen time, man. And it's so obvious. And Elvis said, "Look, guys, it's not like you're calling on the king or something." And he meant the king of England. You know how you bow down there. And John said, "Yes, you are. You're the king. You're the king." And Elvis said, "I don't mean that kind of king. Come on, guys. Let's do something. Let's talk, sing, play, or something. Otherwise, I'm going to go back and watch television." "Oh, no. We're ready." And then that loosened it up. So they got some bass and guitars out, and they sang, and Elvis sang some of their songs. They sang harmony with each other. And it went on, and Ringo was kind of beating on the table a little bit with the rhythm. His hands got tired or sore or something, and he just kind of eased out. He asked Red and I to go play a game of pool with him there in the game room, which was right next to the den there. So we went in and played a game of pool. But a lot of people, we just kind of accepted that they were the Beatles, and he was Elvis, and they were meeting, saying hi to each other. There were no tape recordings made. There were no photos taken inside. It was all kept like that. And people said, "God, why didn't one of you guys tape it?" And I said, "I wished I had. I wished I had, boy, to have that tape of that meeting." But some of the guys went over I went to the house the next night, and the house they were leasing, and they had this big fence around. You had to crawl up a mountain. If you didn't go up the driveway, there's a mountain around it, and it's on top of this big wooden fence around it. Girls were climbing up that mountain. You could see them out there like Indians, boy, working their way up, trying to get up next to that, up to that fence to try to get in. But when I told you about them being crazy and everything this should give you an idea of what I mean. We had some famous fireworks at Graceland. Christmas time is a special time for Elvis. We were always there for Christmas. And a lot of it had to do because of fireworks on New Year's Eve. He'd buy thousands and thousands. We had to go to West Memphis because you couldn't have them there. You couldn't buy them in the city. Well, we lived in the county at the time. So he wasn't going against any city ordinance by having those fireworks. And we'd get in the backyard and these big cannons go off and we're doing all that. And then it came time to the wars with the Roman candles. We had gunfights with Roman candles, shooting each other. And they would sting you and they burned if they got your skin. Not bad, like someone threw a lighted match on you or something. But anyway, and then Elvis went to these things, the rockets, bottle rockets. Supposed to put them there and let them go way up in the air because they go, and they're fast. They go 5,000 miles an hour, man. He'd shoot those things at us. And you didn't know where it was going because it's doing this here. And I was running by the house, pointing out, boom, one of them hit in the house, knocked a hole in it, and I just kept on going. So we're hiding from him because it's funny to him. It's not funny when you think that thing's going to get you. In a few minutes, someone opens the door and says, "Time out, time out. The house is filling up with smoke." I went over there and I looked, boy, and there I looked inside where that where that rocket had knocked a hole in that stucco wall, and I could see some embers in there, smoking and burning. Whoa! I went and got the hose, and I brought over and I stuck that hose in, and I got thinking about Elvis shooting at me again while I was doing it, and I took off and left the hose there. So we continue on. A few minutes later, they say, "House is flooding." I turn the water off, and I go over there real quick and get that hose out, and Elvis says, "Daddy's going to get mad at y'all for doing that, man. Knocking a hole in the wall, smoking up the house, flooding it." I said, "Okay, all right, I'm going to stay away from you." A little while later, we went into the house, and we were talking about it, and Mr. Presley had a habit. There were nuts and different things, especially at the holidays. He would grab a handful of peanuts, throw them in his mouth and chew them. Well, we're sitting around the kitchen talking about what we'd done, and Elvis had burnt my butt up with a flare. They had these little things like helicopters that you light and takes off real fast. You put them underneath someone. It hits you. So I put one under Al, and I'm ready for it to go off, and I look, and there's one under me, and I jump back and right into Elvis's flare. Ah! I snuck. That's phosphorus. It keeps burning, folks. It doesn't go out. And it's burning me, and I took off across that thing, hitting back there, trying to holler, and he's laughing. Funny to Elvis. I went on and got that hose and put on there, you know, trying to put it out. But we're in there later laughing and talking about this, and Vernon comes into the room. And there on the kitchen counter, there's a bowl there, and it's got these little red and white things in there. Vernon grabs a handful, throws them in his mouth, chomp it, boom! They blow up. It's those poppers that you throw. Smoke billowed out of his mouth. Oh my God, have I got my teeth? Elvis is dying. Elvis fell over, his chair went over backwards. He fell on the floor. And Vernon said, it ain't funny, it ain't funny. And Elvis knew he wasn't hurt, but it stung, it numbed him up a little bit. He said, y'all ought not to do that. People are going to think that. And Elvis said, Daddy, you the first one all night. He said, well, you watch. There'll be some others come in and do it. You just watch. So he hung out there for a while, waiting. People walk in and out. No one went over there to it. Here comes Billy Smith, about 13, 14 years old, Elvis's nephew. Vernon's nephew. Vernon said, Billy, you going to have some of that candy there? Billy said, yes, sir. Where is it? He said, right there in that bowl right there. No, sir. Uncle Vernon, that's those pop things you throw down. That's not... Again, Elvis starts laughing about it. He said, Daddy, I told you. He said, well, someone will do it, but I probably won't be here when they do. And he left. No one did. Vernon's the only one that did that. But it was, that was some of the crazy times. We started wearing goggles and things because Richard got hit near the eye, and it hurt him a little bit, but it didn't do any permanent damage to his eye. But everybody realized that, you know, an eye could be taken, especially that rocket. You don't dodge that rocket. It comes, and if you're there, it's going to get you. There is no way. Bullet Bob Hayes couldn't get out of the way of one of those things. When it got you, it got you. It never hit anyone, though. We were lucky because they were just crazy things. But I got a story. We talk about charisma and things like that. And Elvis was loaded with charisma, magnetism, everything you can think of that you think you see on TV, in his news conferences or whatever. And you see this and you think, God, he's gorgeous. Man, is he. Well, let me tell you something, folks. A lot of actors, a lot of entertainers thought the same thing about Elvis. And he found out from Jack Lord, from my wife, 5-0. They became friends. And he told him, Elvis, you got a lot of fans up there in New York. He started naming Paul Newman, Tony Franciosa, Steve McQueen, Ralph Meeker. They all worked together doing plays and stuff up there on Broadway, and they knew each other from acting, from actor studio. They all think you're something, man. And because they were friends of Jack's, because Jack was up there with them. And it really moved Elvis. Later on, he said, God, you believe that, man? They're fans of mine. I said, here we are. We can't wait to see the movies they come out with. So that really pleased him, you know. That charisma that Elvis had and magnetism, it was very evident to these other celebrities and people that saw it also. And because they had their own, and Elvis admired it in them. And one of them was Muhammad Ali. He was in Vegas in 1973 to fight Joe Bugner from Europe. Young, strong bull boy, 21 years old. And Ali won the fight that night, but I'm telling you, he had all he could handle. It was a decision. The guy just kept coming, took everything Ali had to give him. But before that, while he came in there and was training, he was staying at Caesar's Palace, and he came to the show, Elvis's show. And we were huge fans of Ali. So when the show was over, instead of receiving him back in the dressing room, we immediately had them escorted up to the suite because Elvis wanted to spend some time with him. So we met him up there. They were up there actually waiting when we got there. We came in the back way. And Ali stopped and looked at him. He said, man, I know why those women love you so much. You're almost as pretty as I am. That broke it. Elvis just grinned and laughed, walked up, shook his hand and everything. And so they started talking and everything. And Ali had mentioned about Elvis's jumpsuits, how much he liked them. So he had a guy with him that came over to me, and he said, Sonny, Ali's talking about wanting a robe made out of like that jumpsuit of Elvis's. Can you tell me who makes those and everything? And I said, well, I could, but let me check with Elvis here in a little bit. So when the time presented itself, I told Gene, I said, I'll get back to you. I'll call you and give you the information. He said, okay. His name was Gene Kilroy. So we visited everything, and they messed around talking. Ali did a couple of butterfly stings and stuff, you know. They left. And I told Elvis, I said, Elvis, Ali wants to get his guys to get a robe made up like your jumpsuit. And I thought maybe you might want to do that. He said, oh yeah. He said, call Bill and set it up. So I called Gene. I said, Gene, we're going to take care of it. I'll call you when we've got it back here in town. He said, okay. So got in touch with Ballou, told him it was for Ali. He's 6'3", about 225 pounds or so. Want the sleeves big enough for the gloves to be able to be brought through them when he's in the ring with no hassle. So they need to be flared big, and they need to be still big all up in here too. So go down to mid-calf or a little bit lower and make it sharp. And he did. It came in, I called Gene. Gene checked it out, said, we're going to come over early on the way to the fight. And Ali, we're going to come there to the hotel, because they were fighting at the convention center, which was right next to the Hilton Hotel. So they came over the night of the fight. Well, I went over to get them. And I took a security guard and a Hilton security station wagon. And I go to Caesars, the guard stays out there, I go in, go up to Ali's floor, tell the guards that I'm there to pick up Ali and his party. And his guy says, sure you are. I said, no, I am. I said, really? I said, just check with Gene Kilroy. He said, I will, but he still doubted it. So he went over there, and all of a sudden, here comes Gene out the door. Sonny, you ready? Well, this guy's his guard, security guard's manner changed real quick. He said, oh, okay, yeah. So Gene, they come out. Ali comes over, hey, Sonny. So we get in the elevator and we go down. We start walking through the casino. He's like a panther pacing. He's got this thing. I'm walking next to him, and I'm just getting pumped. Damn, it's just raining off of him, you know. People are, Ali, Ali. The whole casino is saying Ali, and he's walking. He's got this look on his face, and he's doing, and you can see him. He's acknowledging him, but he's got things in his mind that we couldn't even think of. So we get out to the car. I said, over this way here, Ali, and we start over towards the station wagon. He said, where are you sitting, Sonny? I said, I'm going to sit up front. He said, I'm going to sit up front with Sonny. So he gets into the middle of the front seat and stretches those arms out, and they go on forever. You know, the driver, the security guard's like this here to drive. The rest of them, the doctor and Gene and his brother, the bodyguard, Ali's brother, and Dundee, Angelo, they get in the back of the station wagon there. So we're driving over to the hotel, the Hilton, and I can feel this energy, and it's on me. I'm just kind of moving around a lot. And Ali says, Sonny, what's wrong with you? I said, Ali, you got me so pumped up, I'll get up and whip his ass for you if you want me to, you know? All right, Sonny, yeah, okay. Sonny's my second tonight, you know? So we get over there, and it really was. It was just contagious. So we get over there, and we go upstairs through the back way up the elevator and everything, and Elvis is waiting, and they come in. Elvis has the robe brought out. Well, it's supposed to, he puts it on. Ali, oh man, he puts those arms through there, starts doing his shadow boxing, doing this stuff. There's a big mirror there. And as he turns around, Gene Kilroy sees what's written on the back. It's supposed to say the People's Champion. I messed up. I had the People's Choice put on there. Gene whispers to me, Sonny, that's supposed to say the People's Champion. I said, oh God. Ali ran around, that big mirror in there for him. He goes, what does that say back there? About 5 voices loudly, the People's Choice. And I spoke up. I said, Ali, that's my fault. I thought that's what was supposed to go on there. 'Cause I thought that that's what you are or what you were, you know. And I'll get it fixed, or we'll give him another one, right, Elvis? I can't afford that several $1,000s. And Elvis said, "Yeah, we'll take it." He said, "No, wait a minute now. Y'all just wait a minute. People's champion, people's choice. No, I like it. Anybody can say they're people's champion, but the people's choice, you're it, right? You're it, guy." And his guy, "Oh, yeah, yeah." So that's the class that he had. He took the heat off of me. So he left. Before he left, he said, "Elvis, I know you need Sonny, man. I need my guys, and I know you need him. But I'd like to ask you if you'd let him come over and be your representative tonight and watch me whip that boy's ass from Europe." And he said, "Sonny's my second. We found that out in the car." I said, "What?" I said, "I'll tell you later, boss." I'm just hoping he says, "Yeah." So he says, "Yeah, okay." So I did. I went over there and I sat on the third row with Gene and watched it. And boy, I was pulling for Ali because Bugner was really tough on him. He won the decision. And I left because I knew he'd have reporters and all kind of people in the dressing room. So I just went back over to the show to do my job with Elvis. And we kept through with the engagement. I don't know how long it was later, 3-4 weeks or a month and a half or something. We're at the home. I'm living with Elvis there in L.A. at Holmby Hills. And intercom buzzer rings. And I answer it, and it's the maid downstairs. She said, "Muhammad Ali's on line 1. I said, "Who?" She said, "Muhammad Ali." I said, "Yeah." So I think it's someone. Because I've been telling people about this, and I think Alan, somebody's going to put me on. I said, "Hello, Sonny." I said, "Yeah, who's this?" "Ali." I said, "Well, hey, Ali." I'm thinking, this does sound like him, you know? And he says, "Just calling, man, see how you doing. You know, I'm back getting ready for my next fight. He better not be as tough as that Bugner was. You know, I brag about what I was going to do, and I didn't barely just to get it done." So I'm just letting him talk. I don't know what to say to him, you know. And all of a sudden I said, "You want to talk to Elvis?" "Sonny, if I want to talk to Elvis, I call Elvis. You know, I called you. I'll talk to Elvis another time." I said, "Okay." So we talked for a few minutes, and then it was done. He called one more time. He talked 2 or 3 times, talked to Elvis and everything. But he really was loaded with charisma. I would say next to Elvis, he had more charisma and magnetism and an aura about him more than anyone else besides Elvis. He ran a close second. But I loved him then, and I love him now, and I just feel so sorry. What's his disease, you know? It's just to have such a grand champion and have him debilitated like he is, it just breaks your heart. But at the Olympics with wasn't that great? It was so good. But I sure would like to see him before anything happens, just to say hi to him again. I'm going to do it. I'll get a chance to do it. And I'm going to say hi to him. One of the craziest times, once Ali left town, was when we had a gunfight. It wasn't a real one. Elvis had death threats, but he hadn't had any for a couple of years now. So we decided to pull this prank on the Stamps Quartet. We're going to say there's a threat on Elvis's life. Someone's trying to kill him. And then we're going to ask the Stamps if they'll help us walk with Elvis through the corridors back there, from the dressing room to the suite, to help protect him. So we get the guards in on it, 2 guards that do the escort with us from the hotel. We got them to empty their guns that night of bullets. We got blanks for mine and Red's guns. We're ready to set it up. We go to JD and we tell him we got a problem. We got another death threat. He said, "Man, we haven't had one of those in so long." I said, "I know it, but it's here." I said, "I want to know if you and the guys would walk with security is stretched out. They have no extra people to put around him, and we need help getting him from the dressing room up to the suite. And we just wondering if you guys would do it." He said, "Well, man, I'll do it because I love him." But he said, I got to talk to my guys. I got to make sure they understand that if they do it or don't do it, it's okay because, you know, they're still going to be a member of the Stamps. whether they do it or not. So he went on, I said, okay. So he went on and talked to him, then he called us in. Ed Enoch. He was an air policeman in the Air Force. Knows how to handle a gun. He carried one for almost 4 years. And we call him the wild man for other reasons. He was crazy. He was really about that close to being insane. But I loved him to death. Today, I still do. I see him, talk to him. He's talking kind of for the group. And he said, JD told us what it's about, so maybe you can give us some more details. And I said, okay, yeah. What it is this. And I went on into it again about the death threat. And I said, JD's going to do it. He said, but he wanted you guys to know that you could do it. It was your choice. And Ed, he said, well, yeah, we're going to do it. We love him too, man. Right, guy? And the guy says, yeah. I let that go for a second. I said, man, I appreciate it. I know Elvis will. Because, you know, the more bodies around him, the less chance the bullet's going to get to him. Then it hit him. Bill Bays started praying. He was the real religious one of the group. Ed says, well, yeah, we're still going to do that, right, guys? Donnie, all of them, yeah, we're going to do it. So we set it up. So I was the point man, as always. I was in front. Red brings up the rear. The 2 guards are on the side. A couple of the other guys in the group are there, and then the stamps are around. So I don't see what's going on back there, but Red does. It's right in front of him. Elvis is looking down at the corridor. He cannot look up because he can sense what's happening. These guys are looking at every nook and cranny in that corridor, boy, straining those necks to look down that hallway. They're doing this, and Elvis is trying not to see this. So we get upstairs, go in the back way, and man, yeah, we made it. And they're happy and they're cheering. Okay. They settle down, and I said, right in front of them, I go up to Red. I said, Red, I'm going to go check with security, see if we've got any more information on this nut. I'll be back up. So I let them see me, the stamps see me go out the front door. I go around through the club that's up there, back to that back elevator, and my room is back there. And I come in that door, and I go back to my room, and I put a black coat on. And I get my gun out. I go back up there where that corridor meets that foyer in the sunken living room out there, and you can see them out there, all happy. I take that gun, and I say, Presley, you're dead. Pow! And Elvis falls. Red grabs his gun, starts running in my direction, and he fires off a couple of shots, and I say, pow! Red drops. Oh, I've been hit! And he hits and rolls. JD jumps down on top, Elvis jumps down, and JD jumps down on top of him to cover him. Donnie Sumner just disappeared from my view. He just took off. And I found out later he had vaulted over this big bar, over it, like a gazelle, never broke a glass, never broke a bottle or anything, and landed behind that and was crouching back there in hiding. Ed Enoch pulled over a big round table there as a shield and jumped down behind it. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the guards are dead too. They pulled their guns and I shot them. So 4 shots, 4 dead people. So Ed pulls that table over and Bill jumps down behind him. Bill's the one that prays a lot. He started speaking in tongues, praying and everything. Ed told me, shut up, Bill. Somebody give me a gun. That's what Ed's asking for. Well, he crawls over and gets one of those guards' guns. But it was empty because we had it emptied. All of a sudden, as I'm making my way through the dining room over there on the other side, through the kitchen dining room to come out over there, because that's where Elvis and JD are, I hear Enoch say, man, they don't even carry bullets in these things. Thank goodness. I could have got shot. So I get over there. This is when I find out where Donnie is. Just over on the other side of that bar, everything's quieting down now. And JD's big old gray head starts rising up above that bar. And I see it, and I went, pow! And I shot. The wad hit him. Oh my God, I've been shot. He went back down. He fell back over on Elvis. Donnie saw my hand when I shot. That's when I found out he's there. He comes out, grabs hold of my hand, my wrist here with the gun, with his left hand, and in his right hand is a big 2-quart can of tomato juice. And he's going to smash my face with it. He draws back and does that. Boy, and I pull over to the side, and it went flying out of his hand over and took a gouge out of the wall. But the momentum, and I pulled my arm, and his hand slipped off. And it's a sunken living room, so I'm up a couple of steps on the dining room level. And he's there on his knees, and I've got that gun. I said, Donnie, you're dead. He thought it was me. He said, Sonny, oh God, it's you. And he fainted. He really fainted. He fell over, dead faint. He thought I had gone berserk and was killing everybody, you know? So everyone's laughing. Elvis starts laughing. Everyone's laughing. It's over with now, and JD's getting up. By God, he said, when I was down there and I felt Elvis shaking, I thought, it's a joke. He's laughing. He's just shaking from laughing here. When that shot hit me, I thought, no, he's scared. That's why he's shaking. So we're all laughing about it and everything, and everyone's fine with it now except Ed Enoch. Ed Enoch is ranting and raving, very upset that we would do this to him. Make him think that he was going to save someone's life and it's just a big joke. Can't believe you guys did this to us. And we're just looking at him. And he's going on and walking. I mean it. You think it's funny? You know what? We got to do this to Burton and those guys. That's how quick he got to thinking about it. It was funny. But we had a crazy times with them, you know, over the years. And I love them to death. And I still see them. They're not all there. JD's gone. Ed is there. Ed Hill is now not with them because he had a stroke. But it's some really good memories, and I could see that whole thing that night, and it really was funny. There's another thing that was a very important meeting like the Ali, and that was when Elvis decided he wanted a federal narcotics badge. He was good at getting what he wanted, and you're going to find out just how good. So he went up there to meet with John Finlater up in Washington, D.C., who was deputy director of the Bureau of Dangerous Drugs and Narcotics, and asked him for a federal badge. He said, I can't give you one. I can give you an honorary or something, but I can't give you a real one, Ellen. I said, I don't want honorary. I want the real thing. I can help. You know, people don't think of me in that way, and I can help. And he said, well, I'm sorry, but I can't. He said, only the man can give you that. Elvis said, the man? He said, the president. I said, well, Miss Finlater, thank you. It's nice meeting you. He's gone. Off to see the man. He writes a note, drops it off at the White House gate. The guard takes it in, gives it to who he's supposed to give it into, a guy by the name of Dwight Chafin, who is responsible for that part of it. He reads the note, and he calls Bud Crow. He said, Bud is the one that makes the appointments. He said, Bud, we got a problem. Bud said, what is it? What's the problem? He says, well, the king is here and he wants to meet with the president. Bud said, king? What king? Nobody told me there was a king coming today. He said, no, not a king, the king. And Bud picked up on and said, you talking about Elvis? Elvis Presley? Right, that's right. He wants to meet with the president? Yes, he does. I've got a letter right here from him that he's written, dropped off at the gate. And Bud said, well, can we do it? Dwight said, I don't know. We're going to have to run it by committees, and Haldeman's going to have to check off on it, who was the chief of staff, John Haldeman. He said, well, let's do it. Let's see. So they had to see if it was beneficial to the president to meet with Elvis, if it was good or bad or whatever. And they ran it by. And people went ahead and said, yeah, he's a connection to some people that maybe are not not into President Nixon right now, but he's got a lot of input and everything, so they decided to have the meeting. And John Haldeman laughed and checked. I said, okay, let it happen. Well, I didn't even know he was in Washington, D.C. that day. I was asleep in Graceland, my room. And that morning, I get a call around 8 o'clock in the morning. It's Jerry Schilling. Sonny, I said, yeah, what? He said, Elvis wants you to get the next plane to Washington, D.C. I said, Washington, why? He said, he wants you up here. I said, is Elvis up there? He said, yeah, I thought he was asleep. He said, no, he's up here. He flew all night, California, and back. He left that night with just his American Express cards, all he had. And he got a flight to L.A. and back, got Jerry out there and flew back to D.C. So I go out and catch a plane. I was that close to not being able to meet the president. I got up there, and as I pulled up in that taxi from the airport, Jerry is standing outside, and I get out of the cab. He said, "Hurry up, Sonny. He's going to take your luggage up to my room. We don't have time. We're going to see the president." And Elvis coming around with the car. And here comes the limousine with this guy, Ben was his name, driving it. And Elvis sitting back there in the seat. "Hurry up, get in, we got to go." We get in the car. We drive over there. They take Elvis into one area. They take Jerry and I, a guy named Jeff Donfeld, who was an aide with Bud. He took us to another place. Elvis goes in. Well, now he's dressed really to the max. Got a purple fur suit on, cape, rose-colored glasses, 14-karat gold, big gold belt that the Hilton had given him, International Hotel actually gave him for breaking records, and a walking stick, cane. Well, the president's there in his conservative thing, suit, tie. He looked at Elvis after they had said some greetings and everything. He says, "You dress kind of wild, don't you, son?" He said, "Mr. President, you got your show to run and I got mine." Nixon said, "That's right. That's very good. That's very good." So they hit it off. So then we went ahead and they talked and met, and then we're over there talking about how we can't believe we're going to meet the president. The guy tells us, "You're probably not. He only has so much time," and Elvis seems to be taking all of it. I said, "You don't know Elvis. We'll meet him." Phone rang. "Come on." He said, "Y'all, let's go. Y'all going to meet the president." So we go over there and step inside, and Elvis says, "Come on in, guys." I couldn't just walk into the Oval Office. I just to the side. Jerry, too. Elvis is taking over the room. "Come on in. Mr. President, here's those guys I want you to meet." The president gets up behind the desk, walks out there, shakes my hand, shakes Jerry's hand, hits me on the shoulder, said, "You're a couple of big guys. Y'all take pretty good care of him?" And Elvis spoke up, "Yes, sir, they do, Mr. President, they do." He said, "Well, that's good. That's good. Don't you have something for them, Mr. President?" "Oh, yeah." The president goes over to his drawer, goes in there and comes back with these 14-karat gold keychains with the presidential seal hanging from them. Gives me one, gives Jerry one. We thank him. Then all of a sudden he says, "Mr. President, they got wives, too." He's calling the shots, isn't he? Back they go. Elvis follows him over there. He comes back with gifts for my wife, Judy, and for Red's wife, and Jerry's wife, and it's got these gold bows with the presidential seal, and he gives them to us. We thank him again. Elvis is over there going through his drawer. The president looks over and says, "You see anything you like there, Elvis?" He goes, "Oh, yes, sir. You got some pretty good things here." And he said, "Help yourself. I got plenty of them." At the start of the show, I said that the day that I met Elvis, my life would never be the same. Well, I'd like to tell you the end of that story is the day that he died. My life changed and will never be the same again. Thank y'all. Y'all miss him too. I know you do. He's in your hearts, your minds, but we'll always have him. They can't take that away from any of us that loved him. Thank y'all for coming. Hope you enjoyed it.